What's going on, guys? The Army Trucker here. So today I want to talk about not taking no for an answer. And what I mean by that is not taking no for an answer when it comes to your claims. I recently got my first denial for an increase I filed for PTSD. The increase, if I get it on my appeal, will put me at 100%. So here's what happened. I didn't provide a DBQ. I went to the CMP exam assuming that the doctor that does the CMP exam through the VA that was contracted, she was a private doctor, knew what the hell she was doing, and lo and behold, she did not. Um, Generally, when you file a disability rating, or you file the Service Connect PTSD for a disability rating for compensation, uh, what they did in my initial exam was the doctor did what he was supposed to do, and he went through the DBQ with me. He asked me questions relating to the DBQ, asked me questions directly off the DBQ, and checked the corresponding boxes along with that. It's a very easy piece of paperwork. If you ever file for an increase, you'll get actually a copy of the DBQ requested from the VA that you submitted, because they would rather you submit it to your private doctor as opposed to them having to pay for it themselves. So what happened when I filed my increase and went to the CBQ performed by a private doctor? Well, before I went to my examination, the VA sent me a piece of paper through the company they had contracted it with, and they told me she had been, this particular doctor, she had been in her particular profession, which I think was a psychiatrist, for over 10 years. So she was well versed. However, she was still within her first year of filling out CMP exams. So she didn't go over the DBQ with me while I was there. My hour-long appointment took about 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and basically she asked me what my traumas were, which is kind of flirting with the DBQ along the lines of a couple of the questions. And asked me what my traumas were, and she checked my cognitive ability as well as my short-term memory. And that was it. She said, "Thank you, Mr. Finch. Have a good day." And I was like, "Well, Doc, hold on a minute. That's not it. We didn't go over the DBQ." She told me that she doesn't go over that with me, and that's not how she does it. And I was like, "But you didn't ask me any of the questions, you know." And she said she had enough information. And I told her that I didn't think that she did. And lo and behold, I was right. And she thought I was there also. Furthermore, when I did my claim, I, of course, put in lay evidence statements, and she didn't go over any of that before I got there. She didn't know why I was there. She thought I was there for a routine evaluation that the VA does every 5 years after you get your percentage. Every 5 years after that, after you get that date, generally they send you to another CMP exam or request another DBQ from you to make sure things haven't gotten better or to see where things are at so they can give you the corresponding rating. So there was just multiple red flags. She didn't know I was there. She apparently didn't read any of the documentation from the VA because it clearly states that we're there for an increase, nor did she go over my statements. So how the hell did she fill out the DBQ or perfectly? I don't know. That's beyond me. That's beyond my pay grade, if you will. So we got denied. We got the denial letter the 3rd of April. It's now, excuse me while I check my watch, it's now the 1st of May. Today, I input my DBQ from a private doctor, which more or less was a friend of the family who did me a favor by doing it for free. Otherwise, I'd have had to pay some other doctor privately to do it, because the VA is not going to send me to another CMP exam, even if I appealed their examination based on the fact that she didn't know what the hell she was doing, and that's why I am appealing my decision and filed a notice of disagreement. they wouldn't have, probably most likely wouldn't send me to another CMP exam because they've already done that. So I provided a DBQ. I provided another statement in support of my claim, and now I wait. So, I mean, this is where it comes back to don't take no for an answer, because I know where I'm at. I know what I think I deserve. I know what my symptoms are. I know what my triggers are. And you can look up the law on mental health or any other facet dealing with the VA and dealing with claims. You can look up the percentages and see what you think you meet. And that's something I've covered before in previous videos. But if you're going to file for a claim, you need to determine where you think you are and suit your statement to support that. I'm not saying embellish by any means. Don't exaggerate your symptoms. Don't downplay your symptoms. But in your heart of hearts, you know where you're at, and you should be able to put that statement together to support where you think you're at. And I feel like I did that. However, that particular doctor, I don't believe she filled out the CMP exam correctly. So, again, kind of going back to, we appealed it, my wife and I say we meaning my wife and I, as well as my VSO, filed notice of disagreement. I provided the DBQ from my private doctor, which thankfully I didn't have to pay for out of pocket, even though I was fully prepared to do so. He didn't charge us anything. And lo and behold, with the same statements he came up with and checked every box after going over the examination with me. He checked nearly every box because he gave me the DBQ back to turn into the VSO. But he had checked every box that corresponds with 100%. So most likely when all this comes through, I'm crossing my fingers and my toes, but I feel good about it, that the VA couldn't possibly deny me for 100% unless it's on some other technicality. I'm not sure what that would be if they do, but I feel like the evidence provided along with the statements and now the DBQ matches 100% for mental health under PTSD. So if you get denied, don't stop fighting the VA. Now, I think it was February of 2019, they changed how you can submit appeals. So there's 3 different ways you can request a higher level appeal, and you can't add any evidence. It's just supposed to go to a senior qualifying rater person at the VA who goes over the evidence that you already have. And sorry for the upward inflection there, but they go over the evidence you already have. And then they make another determination on what they found. And most likely I would strongly discourage anyone from using that level of appeal, because if you're being denied most likely for a reason, and you need to add more evidence. There's also a supplemental appeal, which is what I did. I filed a notice of disagreement. I've told them why in a statement, as well as on the notice of disagreement paperwork, why I disagree with them. And it's because, like I said, the CMP examination person who filled out the DBQ didn't know what the hell they were doing in so many words. And then the third thing you can do is go before the Board of Veteran Appeals. And I'll save that. If I get denied from the supplemental exam, I'll, again, provide more evidence as to why I think they're wrong if they determine that they're going to deny me again. And then I'll request an appeal under the Board of Veteran Appeals, which hopefully I won't have to do that. So the Board of Veteran Appeals takes the longest. It's anywhere, I think, from 5 to 7 months. A little bit longer if you provide evidence, a little bit less if you don't provide new evidence. The supplemental claims, kind of the same ballpark from what I read. It was, I think, 4 to 5 months, 4 to 6 months, somewhere in that time frame right now. And you can also provide new evidence for that, or you can leave the claim as it sits with no new evidence, which, again, I would strongly discourage. If you got denied, address why you got denied and address why you think you should get the proper rating or get an increase or a higher rating. the worst the VA can tell you is no and give you another decision as to why they don't think you fit that particular category. So don't take no for an answer. There's no reason to. Get the percentage you think you deserve. And you can always get a lawyer. You can always get a lawyer that deals with veteran appeals and veteran law. That's all they do. And you can pay them. If they win, most likely, and they take your case, it's because they believe they can win. And they're going to more or less just take money out of whatever back pay you get, and then maybe a percentage going forward for a year or whatever. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but you're going to pay them their money. But having 50% of your back pay is better than having 0% of your back pay. So that's always an option as well. But at no time in this process should you take no for an answer from the VA. It doesn't make any sense to me. I was really ecstatic when I got my original decision in 2016 of 70% for PTSD. I didn't think I was going to get a rating that high, but looking back, I feel like if I wasn't working at the time and my symptoms were a little bit worse off where I am now, I would have gotten a 100% rating because that doctor I felt like was really passionate. My initial doctor that did my initial CMP exam was very passionate in going over the DBQ and seeing where my symptoms were. And he put a big emphasis on, well, are you working or not? So again, just to go over everything, there's 3 levels of appeal process. There's a supplemental claim where you can add more evidence if you need to. There's requests for a higher rater, which you can't add more information to. And then there's requesting an appeal through the Board of Veteran Appeals, which is going to take the longest, especially if you add more evidence, and you can request a hearing, etc., and a judge to look at it. So there's kind of different levels within the Board of Appeals itself. So guys, if you're filing claims and you're filing increases and you're filing appeals, don't take no from the answer from the VA, especially if you had a bad CMP exam. There's no reason to take no for an answer. And mental health's a little tricky. Every other thing you're going to file for through the VA, you can have the DBQ done by a private doctor with the exception of mental health. Even with a diagnosis through the VA, which is something you have to file a disability claim through mental health, or for your mental health, excuse me. That initial examination and CMP exam and that initial DBQ has to be done through the VA. And again, I got a contracted doctor, but it was still through the VA. The VA was paying for it. However, if I wouldn't have got, my initial examination would have been, 30%, I could have appealed it and had a DBQ done by my primary or my private doctor. So yeah, just don't take no for an answer. Get the rating you think you deserve. Do not stop fighting because you get a letter in the mail that says you were denied. I understand how stressful that feels and the overwhelming helplessness that you get when you get that letter or when you're waiting on that letter or when the VA doesn't give you an adequate explanation of why you were denied. Even though they're generally pretty thorough, it's still, what they told me was I didn't meet the level of 100%, but I stayed at 70% and I met those qualifications, but didn't meet the qualifications for 100%. So don't take no for an answer. There's no reason to. Get what you think you deserve. Do not stop fighting the VA. Go to the Board of Veteran Appeals if you have to. Go get a lawyer if you have to. Again, giving someone a cut of your money is better than not having any money. And there's plenty of resources out there and plenty of people out there who can better explain it than I. But get that consultation. Go see a lawyer. Go do your research. Be vigilant in the things that you're doing when you're filing claims to the VA, and get the percentages and get the service connections of the things you deserve. Especially if you're not service connected, that service connection is so important. That way you're getting help for that particular diagnosis or illness or injury. A lot of times these things that you're doing years after, and these claims you're filing years after, you may not have all the evidence, but the VA has a duty to help you find that evidence and your military records and whatever it takes to get that. And if you say something happened while on duty, by God, and you provide a statement for it, that's lay evidence. That means it's law unless they can prove otherwise. But then you have to provide. I have my ex-wife, for instance. She called me today. She's filing a claim for her hips are messed up. I forget exactly what it's called. Well, I told her, because her VSO was telling her, even though she deployed to Iraq, her time in service may have not been enough to service connect it. And I told her VSO was full of shit and didn't know what they were talking about. Even if she only served 1 month in country, that's still enough time to be injured in the line of duty. And she was. Her condition was made worse by her deployment, substantially so. So I told her, get the documentation. You have A, you already have the diagnosis. You have C, where you're at now. You have to provide B. You have to provide the connection for the VA to show them that your injuries that you had before were worsened, which you already have worsened to C. You just have to provide to the VA that happened during service. So you have to get a doctor to go over all your evidence to say, and write in a letter and say that it's their medical opinion based upon your records that your condition was made worse through your Iraq deployment. And with that, the VA has no choice but to take that as law. It's just that's how it goes. There's always exceptions to the rule. They're very specific about how they want those letters worded. It has to be that they went through your file, your claim file, or just all your documentation, your medical file, etc. Maybe a medical file from while you were in military service. But that they went through those files, and it's their medical opinion, and they can give an explanation based off their medical opinion as to why they think your condition was worsened or was caused by your service. And with that, you can get your service connection. And this is something I'm more or less very passionate on, not only to help myself, but to try to help others as much as I can. And I try to urge guys, I'm still in the National Guard. I have a few more months. But I see guys that are dealing with these things that they haven't service connected, and there's no reason not to. Like I see guys, and I know guys that have PTSD that aren't service connected. And my God, get it service connected now. Don't wait. Don't wait until you can't find your documents anymore. Don't wait until the Army loses them. Don't wait until you lose your own copies. Go ahead and get that shit service connected. I know the VA doesn't have the best track record. When you hear stuff coming out of Arizona and all those other places, all the horror stories you hear, but it's not that bad. Get your freaking service connection, guys. Fuck me, get your service connection. Don't wait. There's no reason to wait, especially if you're a National Guard soldier, if you're already out. Don't wait. Get off your ass. Go to the VA and get your fucking service connection. It makes me livid because I see these guys dealing with shit and especially PTSD and mental health issues. Like you're dealing with these mental health issues and you have PTSD. You've been diagnosed with PTSD and you're not getting help. Like more often than not, the guys that I know that have PTSD aren't getting help. The guys that are, like myself, that are finally deciding to get help is because they were sitting in their fucking vehicle with a bottle and a gun. That's where I was at. That's kind of what pushed me over the edge to go get help. And it's gotten better, but it's gotten worse. My triggers have gotten worse. My overall condition has gotten worse. But I'm getting help, and I'm trying to get control of my triggers and get everything under control so I can better deal with where I'm at now. Even though I don't work like I should because of my triggers, even though my boss had to create a new job position for me to retain me as an employee because he values me, I'm still trying to get a hold on all this stuff and get the rating that I deserve. And if it wasn't for a psychiatrist at the VA who more or less pushed me to that at my lowest point, I wouldn't have a service connection because I'm like the rest of those guys. Well, it's not, there's people that's worse off than me. And while that may be true, while there may be, amputees and guys that are paraplegic and quadriplegics, that's no excuse for you to not get your rating. Get what your government and your VA deserves to give you. Don't embellish. Don't downplay your symptoms. Get what you deserve. Or get what, excuse me, sorry, been a long day without sleep. But get what you deserve. Get the rating you deserve. And with that said, I'm not sure how many more times I can beat a dead horse. But get the rating you deserve. Do not stop fighting the VA for your rating. Do not stop fighting the VA for your service connection. Do not be that guy who is broke down, can't work because of their issues that they had while they're in service, or can't work well, or whose everyday life is affected because of what they're dealing with. Get your fucking rating. All right. I'm going to get down off my soapbox now, guys. This is the Army Trucker. I'm out.